Hey there everybody, welcome to my channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. I hope you all are doing well, and if this is your first time here, please subscribe and hit the like button, and make sure they comment because I love hearing from you guys. Today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So we're going to do 90 Day Fiancé the other way, episode 15, Family Manners, and episode 16, Fuller House. I just wanted to kind of do them both together to catch up, and they're pretty short. Plus, these episodes seem just like filler episodes to me. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to still talk about each couple and just go through, what happened with them. And then when we get to like the next episode, to episode 16, I'll just say next episode and we'll just continue. So all that being said, let me know what you think about this. If you enjoy that I just did both episodes. I figured both of them together are about as long as 90 days. So anyways, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start off with Danielle and Johan. There wasn't a whole lot from them. They're off to the life coach after the car ride from hell, where they were just slanging insults back and forth. And, I'm just sure that this appointment's going to work out for them. Johan has the dog like a good dog sitter. And, here comes the life coach, and he's happy, excited to see them, ready to work. And they are just reeking of terrible energy, and like they don't want to be there. They're not ready to work. Like they should have just kept driving and canceled and not wasted this guy's time. But Danielle says, of course, she's heartbroken after how he talked to her in the car, and she's glad they're here so someone could tell him they're wrong. But he's wrong, basically. And if he doesn't change, that's going to destroy them. She doesn't need to change anything. He does. So she's still terrible, even though he said some terrible things. I feel like he feels that he got lied to and he got scammed. So, I can't blame the guy. But I just think there were some low blows in there. So the guy sits down and he's like, tell me about your relationship. And there's just silence, and he asks Johan if he wants Danielle to take the lead, and she's like, he says yes, and she's like, that's the problem, is I always have to take the lead. And like, well, I'm pretty sure Johan didn't want to talk after all that happened in the car ride either. But Danielle doesn't feel like she is an equal partner. And then the guy asked Johan if her taking the lead is the problem. And he's like, no, the problem is she says something one day and then changes her mind out of nowhere. She's a flip-flopper. He starts off with, she said we would live well, staying in the DR, staying in his country. But he isn't seeing that life. The life that she's always talking about them having. And then she says she's only been there 3 months. Like, only 3 months? Dang. It feels like it's been 3 years. Like, she's been there forever. She's like, you expect me to purchase a home, a car, have money for your family. He wants what he wants, and he wants it now. He's like Veruca Salt of the DR. So, all he wants is things given to him. So then the guy repeats, like, basically the gist of what Danielle said to him. And he's like, you said you're going to work and I could stay home. She laughs. She says she didn't say that for sure. And he's like, you for sure said that. I put that on my mom. And she's like, well, you must have misunderstood whatever it was I said. But she knows for sure she never told no man that she was going to support his lazy booty while she worked all day. And I do believe that. Then he said you can work and I'm going to stay home with the dog. Like, this whole time they're on, I was just laughing. Like, this was just killing me. And I'm not sure why I thought this was so funny. And then she tells us that the suggestion that she would work all day while her husband sat home to play with the dog is the most ridiculous thing that she has heard. I gotta agree with her there. Like, come on now. And they also talk about how she needs him to contribute financially. And, you know, I believe that she does tell him that because she says it a lot. So I don't think he ever thought he didn't have to contribute financially, at least from her saying it. But she could have been being a jerk one evening. It was like, well, I get to work and you stay home and play with the dog. And he took that literal and didn't pick up her anger or sarcasm. Something like that. But she said that she would never say that, and she could see why. If he thought that she said that, he would be confused. But that's a no from her. He needs to work. She does apologize that he misunderstood, though. The guy again tells him what she said. He also says, you know, they can sit there and fight all day or find a solution. So they move on to important things, and she tells him that they need to sit down, look at all the bills and all the money coming in together, and then decide how to spend, earn, and save to get what they want. But she for sure needs him to work. Johan says that he understands, but he has a lot of ideas and options. And she's like, yeah, I know you have a lot of ideas, but he needs to do actions. He says that there will be, and the guy's like, yeah, sit and work on communication and plan together. She says that she came into this hating him, and now she has a little hope, but she needs to see actions. All they had to do was hire a translator again, not a life coach. So I wonder which one is cheaper. Also, all these therapy, life coach, all this stuff is not working out because he feels bamboozled, and he's putting up with her all day, and she's terrible. So, you know, I don't really care what happens anymore. I just want to see them have the big blowout fight dressed as Santa Claus and the elf, because that's all I've been waiting for. So I hope that's soon. Alright, everybody, next up, let's talk about Kenny and Armando. I'm excited to see some Kenny and Armando. I've missed them. Hopefully I don't need the tissues and it's, you know, dry eyes in the house, but I doubt it. So they're taking Hannah to get some snacks, and Armando says it does feel good to be home, that the driving there is easier, and he also lets us know that they've been back a month. But they haven't talked to Hannah about the surrogacy or moving. And last time he brought up having a baby, she wasn't a fan. She wanted like someone her age instead of a baby. And then they show us like a clip of them telling her before, and basically that's what she said. So he's nervous to tell her and how she might feel, and because she's going to be affected most. So they sit down and they have this beautiful fruity deliciousness presented to them in a giant cup, which I could never ever possibly eat these days, but it looked good. Those are some good snacks. And then Kenny asked her, you know, if she liked the trip to Mexico City, and she did. She said her favorite part was the school. And he's like, well, what would you think if we moved there? And she said that she doesn't know, and asked where they would live. And they're like, you know, we'll get a cool apartment. And she's worried. She wants to make sure the dogs can come too, and they assure her that the dogs are coming. And, you know, they're like, maybe we could even bring the dogs with us to pick you up at school and all of that stuff. She seems okay with it. She says, like, she really likes living in La Misión, but that she's learning, now that she's learning, she's moving to the big city. She's excited. Then Armando goes into before she would said she would want a brother or sister that was her age. And then he says, you know, we're looking into having a brother or sister for you. And she's like, no, not a baby. And Kenny's like, well, do you think your dad will want to spend more time with the baby? She says yes. Armando tells her, you know, she's always going to be his baby. She's his reason for living. All these nice things that I wish my dad said to me. So yes, I teared up a little, but I didn't need the tissues. These two, they always get me. She's like, well, is it going to be a boy or a girl? And of course they don't know. she asks if it's going to speak English or Spanish. And Armando's like, well, it depends on what you teach it to speak. And Kenny's like, no, it'll be bilingual. It's going to speak both. And, she's like, he tells her, yeah, you get to teach the baby how to speak. She wants them to share a room. And they're like, yeah, that would be great. And Armando's glad Hannah's on board with the move and the baby. And he couldn't ask for anything better. But she does say that she isn't changing diapers. And I'm glad she was supportive, because in the, previews and stuff, it made it look like she wasn't. And, of course, they're always, misleading. So I'm glad. Then we get to the next episode. Kenny and Armando are flying to Mexico City. They're going to pick their egg donor. Kenny says it's overwhelming that it's happening so fast, but he feels lucky to have a partner like Armando willing to have a baby with him at 60. So that's pretty cool. The lady tells them that they need to pick 5 egg donors, and then the medical team will decide which is the best out of the 5. So they show she shows them the first lady, and it has all the info, weight, hair, height, eye color, blood type. And, more people should be this thorough choosing the parents of their children. I'm talking about me. I wish I had just a list. Anyway, he says he feels weird going through women and picking them based off looks and things. And they see one, and Armando is like, seems so excited about her. He's like, yeah, write that down. They're nexting girls, calling them out for duck lips. Next. Armando says that he's hesitant to say next because he's cautious about being rude, but Kenny's more blunt and to the point, and Kenny's nexting girls all day long. He says he knows when he says next, it's a no for both of them. And the nurse is sitting there, and all I'm thinking is, really, bro, how many girls do you think we have? This isn't Tinder. But Kenny now realizes that they have the same taste in women. The nurse says some people are more specific about what they want, and they have a type of girl they like. She says they like tall girls, and Armando was specific about the nose, so they made that easy for her. And just like that, they have their 5. Armando is thrilled to start the next step, and the next step is picking a surrogate. So I think there's one lady who donates the egg and another one who carries the baby, something like that. And it's a big deal because they're entrusting her with their child. And then to end their segment, he's like, well, if you were an option, we would pick you. And I think that's funny. Everyone had a good laugh, and I'm happy for them. And I can't wait to see more of their journey about that. I will stock up on my, what are they called? Puffs? The tissues? I'll get some of those. All right, next we're going to get into Brandon and Mary. Picking back up with them and the conversation with Lolo. He's saying, would it be better if I went back? And she's like, maybe. Pregnancy has changed her because she's done with his crap. And she's mad that he can't change his attitude. And he realizes how bad he's become, and he's sorry. And he's making an oath. He doesn't mean it when he says an oath. To change and to stop fighting and yelling and walking away. For her, the family, and the baby. She's like, you need to wake up early, help me with chores. And he's like, okay. He tells us this is a big reality check, that they need to change and stop yelling and fighting. Not him, he needs to stop being terrible. He needs to stop sleeping all day, storming off, embarrassing them in front of the village. They need to change. So if that makes it easier for him, I guess that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going with. He tells us he doesn't want to raise a kid in a chaotic house with separate parents because that's how his life was, and he doesn't really want to repeat that, so he's going to change. He tells Lolo how much he loves her and the family, and he tells him he will change, and he asks his permission to marry her officially because he didn't ask him in the first place. And then she tells him what Brandon said. And he says it would be great for them to get married. And her face is like, Grandpa, this was my out. You should have said no. And he's like, no, lady, you got yourself into this. You're getting married. He's like, since she's already pregnant, you need to get married and live peacefully. Brandon agrees and thanks him. And then she tells us she didn't expect him to ask for the blessing and how that means a lot. And he's showing respect to him. But she doesn't know if he will change. That is not showing respect to him. Respect would have been asking to marry her, getting married, getting her pregnant after that. He followed none of his rules. He didn't even wait for him to get back and ask for permission to ask her to get married. That was the least he could have done. But he already did everything and then asked for permission later. So that's not respect to me. So she tells Brandon, do what Lolo said and be better, and that he needs to control his emotions. She doesn't want her baby to see that. And I've had that same conversation with someone about the same thing. And it didn't work out great. It really didn't. She tells him this is his last chance, and he promises to do better. And I guess we'll see, because their little break is over and they got a customer. But she is hoping they're going to solve everything and have a better life. And she says if he doesn't change, she won't know what to do, because she doesn't want a baby to not have a father. That's where we end them with that episode. And then on the next episode, we start off with them shopping for tuxes and a wedding dress. Brandon wants a pink tux. She wants white. And she tells us that he's been living there for 6 months now, and they're getting married in 2 weeks. He decides on the pink one. He goes to try it on, and she says they've been getting along much better. And, at the same time, she's trying on her dress. She does say that he still plays games too much and barely does chores. But, he isn't yelling anymore. So there's that. She says it's important for her to get married because she's 5 months pregnant. I'm like, dang, he's been there for 6 months. So it was $152 for their wedding attire. He asks if they can afford it, and she says that she can because they're selling cell phones now, and they only get married once. They're still having money issues, but Mary's a hustler and came up with a way to make money selling cell phones with a friend. So she ordered a bunch of phones. People order them from her through Facebook or something, and she delivers them. And for all of this effort, she makes $18. She says it's not a lot, but to her it is. And I mean, good for her. At least she's trying, because Brandon isn't doing nothing. And I'm sure you could live off $18 a day over there, probably. He's telling her that he was thinking of doing the wedding simpler and maybe not renting a venue. She's like, look, here we're going to invite a lot of people. And he says he doesn't know what a Filipino wedding is. And he's just letting her handle it all. But he feels like they're spending more than they need to. But he's not saying nothing because he's trying to avoid fighting with her. And they don't need stress or drama. Plus his mom is coming, and he wants her to see that this is right for him. So next time we see them, they have Brandon out here catching frogs with her brother and friends. And they're catching them to cook them in frog adobo. And he says he's ate a lot of that since he's been there. And the first time that he ate it, they told him they were baby chicken adobo. And he loved it, and he went for seconds and thirds. And after that, they told him it was frog. And that reminded me of something my mom told me that happened to her. That my grandma, for like a week or so, there was like a turtle in her tree or in her yard. Somewhere there was a turtle. And she decided to make turtle soup. Now, I should say that I am like Native American, and that's just a normal thing. But I have never tried that. So my grandma makes turtle soup, and my mom came home, and we live in Minnesota. The winters are cold. So my grandma says, oh, I made deer soup, because people go hunting. And my mom and her friend, they just like scarfed down this bowl of soup. And then they went back for another bowl. And while they were eating it, my grandma was like, "Oh, did you see the turtle in the yard?" And she did not. And that was because my grandma had made the soup. And then my mom was like pretending to vomit and gross and freaking out and all of this stuff. And everyone likes telling that story. So that made me think of that. Anyways, back to the show. Apparently these frogs are for his mama because she asks if he thinks that's a good idea to feed them to her. And he's like, yeah, because it's going to be my fault if she doesn't like it. He says his mom's arriving tomorrow to be at his wedding, and they're going to pull the baby chicken prank on his mom because, that's a great idea. He says that he was always pranking her as a kid, and he hopes that this will break the ice. So then we get to see some lovely frog dissection, and he tells us that his mom, they're not close. They talk maybe once a month, and her relationship with Mary still isn't good. They hated each other from the beginning, and then we get to see, the pizza party that no one was partying at. It was the pizza party from hell. Brandon's goodbye dinner. He says that when she comes to the Philippines, he wants her to get a better connection to him and restart with Mary. And Mary's worried that his mom will hate the Philippines and his life there. And he, even though Brandon's telling her to have an open mind, that's hard for her to do. Mary's worried because she feels like the mom tries to break them up, and she has no indication that her feelings have changed. She just ignores Mary when she's on the phone, and she's always mean to her. He says he still wants to have a healthy relationship with his mom, and he thinks that part of that is him and his mom, and part of that is Mary's relationship with his mom. And Mary says she knows that, but she's worried, and she just wants him to take her side. And of course he's like, yeah, I got your back. And she says, if his mom tries to create problems and he doesn't have her back, she's not going to marry him, because that's what husbands do. They have their wives' backs, no matter what, even if they're wrong and toxic. So next we see that Mary's out here sweeping, and he tells her his mom's bus is going to be there any minute. And he thinks this will be a big culture shock for her. And it will. He's excited to see her, but he's nervous to see what happens between his mom and Mary. And when he told her about the baby, she wasn't really happy. And then they show him video calling her. She told him she's apprehensive because they just met and their relationship is tumultuous, and they should work on themselves first before having a baby. She isn't wrong, but it's too late. The baby's there. So she needs to mind her business at this point if she wants to be involved with him, because nothing's going to take him from Mary. It's too late. He tells us Mary's already sensitive about his mom's disapproval. And worst case scenario, they get into a fight, and he doesn't want his mom to have an excuse to relapse. So we see his mama. She says her journey was long. She wasn't prepared for all the poverty that she saw. And she says, she hopes their house is a little better of a situation, because she wants to feel at ease with his choice to be there. But she isn't sure that that's going to happen. First thing Mary says when they pull up is like, wow, your mom is white. And they pull up, Brandon and his mom hug. Mary looks mad. They meet, they shake hands. She asks him why he is so white. He's been there a while. And because he sits around in the house playing video games all day. He's never seen one sun ray in 6 months, except for when he's sleeping on the park bench. So no, he's not tan. Mary says she wants a fresh start, but she feels like she isn't willing to, because she didn't hug her when Brandon said, and she just feels awkward. And the mom's like, I can tell by her eyes that she doesn't like me. And Like, Mary's just being fake nice, and she's really manipulative, and has isolated Brandon away from his family. And now they're going to have a baby to raise. His mama doesn't trust her. He's like, how do you like it? And she says it's different. And the poverty level concerns her. And he's like, well, yeah, compared to American standards. And then he changes the subject. He asks about the bus ride. Apparently it's not so good. And Mary's tearing up already. She feels out of place. She doesn't know what to say. She doesn't like how the mom looks at her either. And she says she looks like a mean girl. He shows her the seating arrangement on the little buggy. And they all pile in there. And the mom says her and Mary having a good relationship isn't happening. She refuses to walk on eggshells around anyone. So if she sees anything destructive, she's going to say what she wants. She's not worried about upsetting Mary. So that's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, most of these 2 episodes felt like filler leading up to, the drama to come. Alright guys, thanks for sticking around with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Kim and TJ. And we're at their wedding extravaganza again. This is episode 5, 6, or 7 of their wedding. So we meet up at with Kim and her parents. And it's day 2 of her wedding. She says today's going to be even crazier, even more ceremonies, even more outfits than the day before. She is anxious that she's late for 2 of the ceremonies already, and she hasn't talked to TJ since she left the hotel. She hasn't heard from anybody and doesn't know what's going on. She goes to call TJ, and what do you know? He comes walking right through the door. He was preparing some stuff. He said the thread ceremony looks like he got a little face paint or something. He tells her that the haldi ceremony starts in an hour. And she's like, an hour? And he's like, yeah, my thing was running behind. It took too much time. She's a little frustrated and she gets a little snippy. She wants to make sure someone lets them know what's going on because they're sitting there feeling like they're late and she isn't even ready. I want to know how she felt like she was late. Like the 3 of them were literally sitting there waiting to be summoned. They weren't doing nothing. They weren't getting ready in any way. They were ready. All they needed was to be showed the next place to go. TJ says he wasn't engaged with her because he was in the sacred thread ceremony. They show a little clip, and I see he has like Kim's name on his hand, and that made me think like I know they hide the husband's name somewhere in the henna, so maybe they do that with the wife's name, but it doesn't have to be hidden. I don't know. She says that she feels bad. She doesn't know what's going on, but many of the ceremonies are done separately. So it's hard, to explain everything to her. Then the priest comes in. And I just want to say, if she wanted to know about these ceremonies, she could have asked him. And yes, it is his job, too, to inform her what she needs to do. But also, she's sitting there, twiddling her thumbs, getting frustrated. She could be Googling with her phone that she clearly knows how to use to look up these ceremonies and the meanings and things like that. Anyways, the priest is coming in. He's taking her to the haldi ceremony, and she seems annoyed. And her stepmom says, like, she can see why she gets frustrated because it's hard to understand what and when and all of that. And Kim agrees. She's just mad no one's telling her what's going on. And, I'm thinking TJ's family had to put on the whole thing. Like, the bride's family didn't do anything. Usually it's a big group effort. And I can see the giant production and detail and effort that went into this. So, she needs to remember what she signed up for. She knew she wasn't going to know anything. Anyway, she says she's trying to calm and, just have a level head. And she just wants to know what she's supposed to be doing. and no one's keeping her in the loop of her wedding. And I think she just wants to be showered with adoration and attention, like normal brides, not normal, Western brides get to have in her eyes. I don't know. So they sit her down. They have to remove their shoes. And, all the family needs to remove their shoes. They can't understand this guy. She asks for a translator. But, he's off to lunch or something. And he starts chanting. And instead of just shutting up and going with it, Papa Bear over there is like, I would like a translator here to explain this chant and what it's for. And he's like, what is this guy saying? And he just shows him what to do. The priest does and goes about his business. And he's like putting some water or something on their hands with leaves. And they have to like rub them together. They're explaining to her what to do. She doesn't know what's going on. And she asks them if someone can explain things to her before they happen. She's frustrated because she's spiritual. And they're just going through the motions. And also, this ritual is important to TJ. And if it's important to him, she wants to understand all of it and the meaning and not just go through the motions. And, this is the same thing. No, she doesn't. She wants the attention. She wants someone to follow her around all day and kiss her butt and wait on her. And that's not what's happening. And she could have asked or done some research. But she was worried about the tiles and the doors and the windows in the apartment before she even got over here. She said a bunch of times, I didn't have help planning this wedding, or help in planning the wedding. She didn't do anything. And look at this Broadway-esque production these people have put on, and she's ungrateful, and it makes me sick. So the priest lets them go, and Kim needs to calm down because she just wasn't in the mood to invite worship in then, I guess. And she's crying again. She says she's trying to have a good day. It's supposed to be happy. And no one seems to care about her at all. And then she's sitting there. She's trying to take some deep breaths. She doesn't feel like the wedding is incorporating her. TJ comes over to ask what happened. She says she doesn't know what's going on. And she's frustrated. He tells her the problem is the rituals are so complex sometimes and they can't translate. And he says he's going to take responsibility to tell her. And she's like, you can't do that. Someone else should. And he tells her they're a small family and they're taking care of everything. But he'll explain things when he's available. And so now they're starting the haldi ceremony. Haldi means turmeric. It's an Indian spice. They make a paste with turmeric oil and saffron, and the family applies it to their feet and cheeks. And they start from his feet, and then her cheeks, and then her feet, her cheeks, his feet, his cheeks, something like that. Her feet to his top. And it's the process of making him and joining Kim and TJ together as one soul. And, of course, Kim says it's awkward that they're touching her. She can't understand anything. She hates her feet being touched. But it's about love, and that makes her more comfortable. Then they're like, we're just going to put a small drop of water on your head. Just a small drop to represent the bath after the turmeric or something. And by small drop, they meant dump some water on her head. And then she's like, we had a little rough start, but she's in a better headspace now. That cold water woke her up and snapped her out of it. I am enjoying seeing the ceremonies and things. I think they're pretty cool. They're very vibrant. She just bums me out, this girl. So she's being passive aggressive. And she's like, yeah, I like learning. And it's nice when I know. But she's going to be positive and optimistic for the night. Because it's the best night of her life, So then the next episode, it's 7 p.m. and the start of the wedding procession. And I have a random thought. Like, no wonder there isn't divorce in this culture after all of this that they put on. And also, Kim isn't understanding that it's not about her and him, it's about the joining of the families. I believe like these weddings are more about that. Anyways, he says it's their wedding night and they're in for a long one. They have lots of ceremonies. And he just feels so lucky to be marrying the love of his life. Like, yeah, you're super lucky. TJ gets to ride the coolest horse I ever did see, minus the horse in Wizard of Oz that changed colors. That'll always be the best. And he says the tradition starts with Barat, and it's a procession where the groom's family dance while the band, with the band, and the groom is usually on the horse. The cousin tells us how happy and excited their family is for the night. It's their first big fat marriage, so that's exciting. TJ's making fun of his family's dancing, and they have a little laugh. And he says when he gets off the horse, her parents are supposed to welcome him. Someone gave them the instructions on what to do, and her mom had to pinch his nose. They have fireworks going off all around him, and he's just so happy. And you know, next we get to see a little Miss Sunshine herself. She's looking pretty good. I like the outfit. I like her hair and makeup and stuff. And she has her little entourage with her. And she's switched to nervous from bitching, so that's good. And then she's like walking and she sings an awkward remixed version of Here Comes the Bride. And she also lets us know this is the favorite of her 6 wedding dresses. She said traditionally in India, her brothers and sisters would walk her down the aisle, but she wanted her dad to do it. He's her biggest supporter. Excuse me. And it's a Western tradition that she wants to hold true to. And she thought her dad was going to walk her down alone, but nope. 15 people joined them. They even pushed stepmama to the back, and that hurt her feelings. And I'm like, okay. She probably didn't communicate to anyone she wanted. They don't even care what she wants. She's resisting that, I think. But she says she walks down and she sees her man TJ up there, and she realizes that's why she's doing this. And he's her everything, and she loves him. And TJ says the best part of the marriage was like her, and she looks so beautiful. And he says the first thing they do is exchange Jamala, whatever it is. And he says this is a commencement of the Hindu marriage. There's confetti, there's sparklers everywhere. She feels like she's in a fairy tale right now. Next time we see them, it's 10 p.m. family gift and photo time. TJ is saying how lucky he is to be living his dream. And I think specifically the wedding was his dream. He says they aren't married until they do all the rituals with the family later tonight. The priest calculates the planetary situation and the exact time they need to marry. And that will be between midnight and 4 a.m. And he says the time depends on the birth and marriage chart. They tell TJ he needs to go change to his yellow clothes. Kim is on outfit 4 of 6. He says in the Hindu tradition, men are like the god Vishnu, and when Vishnu comes to their place, they welcome him. And that's why her dad is washing his feet. He says he appreciates them being so into this, even though they have no idea what's going on. The parents say they were surprised a few times by the things they were asked to do, but they went with the flow because all 20 ceremonies had a reason. She doesn't know them, but they're going to find out. Kim says now they're doing 7 promises, and this is the official last ceremony before they're married. They do rounds around the fire and sit there, and their souls combine. And then it's 2:23 a.m. They walk 7 times around the holy fire. She says she feels if she got married in the U.S., it would be more relaxing. She could do whatever time she wanted, morning, afternoon, evening. And, that would just be easier. She could do whatever she would like. Then it's 3:37 a.m. They're exchanging elephants. One with salt, one with rice. And then she says again, if this was the U.S., this would be over. And she would be, getting it in right now with her husband. Next, it's 4:05. She's yawning. He tells her, right now, the sun, sky, moon, stars, people are all watching them be married and unite. So, no pressure. Go ahead and tell me your promises now. She's like, I promise to smile back at you if you smile at me and to be one with you. And he tells everyone what she said. And he looks happy. And I was like, what? Like, they probably didn't tell her she had to make up promises either. And she came up with that sleep deprived at 4 a.m. But yeah, he's happy. It started with a text. Now they're married. And she's like, no, it started with a dream. Duh. So, excuse me. Personally, I'm glad the wedding's over. I was happy to see it. They really, really dragged it out. And now I just want to see her, because I saw the preview. She gets to find out she's going to be a traditional Indian housewife. So let's see how that goes, guys. Let me know what you thought about the wedding and all of that. Like I said, I just felt like it went too many episodes. I felt that she was ungrateful for everything that was done for her. Okay, guys, last up, Shekinah and Sarper. We meet up with them. She's looking dressed to the max. She looks great. I like the shoes. I like the dress. I'm a sucker for black. He's impressed. He tells her that he's nervous because today's the first time he's meeting someone who's related to her. And he wants to impress her. And I guess he's making them dinner. She tells us this week that she's lived there hasn't been how she planned. But she's going to forget about that now. Fake it till she makes it. Pretend everything is peaches and cream because her sister arrived today. And she's going to be there for one weekend. She tells him he needs to love her up, give her lots of attention because her sister likes to see that. And he's like, of course I will. And she also tells him that she's the more critical sister. She says that her sister thinks it's too fast and that Sarper's into himself and not her. So she wants her to see that he cares about her and not just himself. And then he says something so ridiculous that I had to rewind it. He says that he is interested in her. He's weighing her daily and, he picked her hair. That's not for him, if she can believe that. And he wants her hair to be a certain way. He wants her to be the world's most beautiful girl. She knows what garbage that is to say. I could barely get it out myself, and tells him not to say that to her sister because it doesn't sound right. She tells him not to say he wants to change her or make her the most beautiful girl. He's like, oh, but you like it. Apparently she does. But she says it can be taken wrong. She says that she thinks that her sister will think that Shekinah isn't good enough for him. And it definitely sounds that way. She tells him he doesn't need to change himself. He needs to keep the toxic things he does between them, basically. He tells us again that this is the first time meeting a relative of hers, so he's anxious because she's the ambassador right now and will go back and report to the family about him. And he knows he doesn't think before he talks. And he knows he can be an idiot sometimes. So, self-awareness is good. She tells us she's excited to see her sister and all, but she's scared because of what happened before she came and what her opinion already is of him. She says her sister latches on to negative things and won't let them go, so that's going to be challenging. Sarper gets out of the car and then comes out, and then she comes out with her sister, so I guess they were hanging out alone or something. I don't know. But anyways, he gets the door for them. She worries about how it's going to go. He welcomes her to his city. She's like, yeah, it's different than I thought it would be. It's really pretty. And Shekinah's hoping that her sister sees the amazing connection she has to Sarper. She wants her to send a good report home to her family. So they get to the apartment, and Sarper tells her to consider this like your apartment, okay? And sister is like, I don't like to make assumptions about who people will be, but all she knows about him from Shekinah isn't good. We find out Sarper is making something special. No cooking, no oven, no heat. He's just going to knead the meat and rice and cook it with his hands. Ugh. Gross. She's like, so, raw meat. And he's like, yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but that is gross. And he also says it's a special Turkish dish called sig kofte. And his grandpapa always made it, and he hasn't cooked it and hasn't made it for anyone in 10 years. And, you know, I mean, he doesn't cook it, but he hasn't made it for anyone in 10 years. And he wants them to know how special they are to him. Sister wants to know about his collection, his alcohol collection. I guess he has a lot of bottles. And he's like, no, they're all empty, you know. She's like, are these from past special occasions? Like, implying it's with women. He says he doesn't think of what happened when he drank them when he sees them. Shekinah says it's weird, you know, his past is following him. And if she's his future, he needs to leave that behind. It's like, come on, like, that's how men decorate. He was like, oh, fancy bottles, I'm keeping that. I paid $100 for that or something, you know. And the sister's like, well, how do you feel if she's uncomfortable with something? And he says he doesn't like someone who wants him to do something. It has to be his idea. And the sister's like, yeah, that's controlling. And this man's over here trying to knead his meatballs. And he's like, look, she wanted me to post her on social media, and I did. And she's like, well, you told her not to post until she moved here. And he's like, yeah, I like to debate issues face to face, because when she's texting, she acts like a slut. And they're like, wait, what? And he repeats it. And she's like, so you're saying my sister acts like a slut? And he's like, bitch. Shekinah's like, I've never in my life been called either of those things. Like, really, that's hard to believe, considering that she made such bad choices in men. That's all she talked about for 3 episodes. And he's like, really? Well, you act like that when we text. He says they debate about something, and she goes away. She doesn't read his messages or anything. And she's like, yeah, because I'm upset with him. She tells us she can't believe he's calling her these things, but, you know, his English is limited, so that's why. He's trying to find a word to describe her in a non-favorable way. But she's chalking it up to wrong time, wrong word. The sister's like, are you okay with him calling you these things? She says she doesn't like it. She asks where his respect is. And apparently being faithful is respect. And then the sister's like, it's hard to take your word because of your past. She tells him, like, he's been an F-boy. And asks if she wanted to see his DMs, how would he feel? He says, never, over my dead body. Is anybody seeing that filth? And she tells him that because he has something to hide, that's because he has something to hide. He tries to say it's his privacy. He's like, if I give her that, she's going to take everything. So the sister's like, give it to me. I'm not with you. He's like, you either. She's like, I'm her sister, and I would like to see. As if that has ever been a thing. Also, he's kind of right here. We all have the right to privacy, even from our partners. There can be any messages on there that are private to him, like from his family, his mom, friends, like their friends' business, whatever it is. It's like everyone deserves their privacy. For him, he's saying it's a respect thing. She's not going to respect him if he does that. She gets mad about how he's talking to her sister. She's like, I flew from California, and as her sister, I deserve to see your DMs. I'm like, what the heck is that? No, you don't. He's like, I would rather die than show them to anyone. It's private to him. You know, it's his private area. They don't understand that. And he's right. He's not right about the name calling, by the way, but he's right about this, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. He says he's not going to show her. Immediately, they're like, because you're hiding something. His sister gets up. She's going to leave. She says she wasn't going to ask to see his DMs, but the way he was responding made her persist, and she hopes this opens up her sister's eyes. She's like, nice to meet you, Sarp. I'm out of here. Every time she says Sarp, I think of Meg from Hercules when she's like, nice chatting with you, Herc. It's been a real slice. It reminds me of that. Sarp. And he finally is like, yeah, nice to meet you. He's still working on his old family recipe over there, and she's leaving, his special dish. And Shekinah's like, really? That's what you have to say? He's like, yeah. He tells her sister she's cute, but she's speaking too much. And the sister's like, he's controlling. He wants to change you. And she's like, he had an off night. Like, no, lady. This is him. Always. And you know that. And you just like being dominated. And that's okay. You like someone telling you what to do. But you need to not pretend to your friends and family like that's a problem with you. Shekinah says she normally wouldn't ask to see someone's DMs. She does think it's invasive, but his huge reaction was shocking. And now she doesn't know what to think. But this night went as bad as it could, so there's that. We get to the next episode. She's telling us, last night they met each other, and it was a total disaster. So she's off to her sister's hotel so they can chat. She says she understands she's looking out for her, but she thinks Sarper deserves more of a chance. Her sister asks her how it went after she left. She's like, yeah, we talked a little, but they thought it was better to get some rest, and they would talk in the morning. And she's like, okay, what'd you talk about in the morning? Sister is not here to play. She says that he would like to have another chance meeting her, and Shekinah would too. She doesn't think her sister got to see their connection or the side that she sees. Her sister is a savage, but also a realist, and says, I feel I didn't see that because it's not there. Shekinah is a little taken aback by that and says, that's not why. She thinks it's because of the questions. Her sister's like, well, if someone's trying to get to know you and you get defensive. And she's like, cuts her off, and she's like, well, how often does someone come in and get to know you and fire off intense questions? They weren't even that intense. She was wrong, though, for demanding to see his messages. She does have no right to do that. So she asks her to give her another chance. She reluctantly agrees. She says her opinion isn't going to change. First impression is a big deal, and he displayed immaturity and anger, and that's going to be hard to come back from. Later, we see them, and they're outside in the cold with blankets to meet her sister again for strike two. His second chance. He says he is nervous to see her again, and he just feels ashamed. He isn't nervous to see her. He just feels ashamed. He knows he can be offensive. She's telling him she understands him, but not everyone else does. She's telling him not, she tells us that she's telling Sarper not to be nervous because she doesn't want to dwell on how bad he did at the first meeting with her sister. She wants him to be relaxed, and she wants her to have a better impression. He says he needs to give her a better impression before she leaves tomorrow. These two are just worried about appearance and what they look like. So he's going to smooth it over tonight. She sits down. They have a long, awkward silence. Then he says he feels guilty about the day before. He says he was being an ass, and he knows it. And he has to change that for her and for them and their happiness. And he's going to do his best to change that. Before she can get out the words she appreciates him, saying, he's like there, like she's like, I appreciate, you're welcome. Like he was ready with that, I welcome. Like, yes, be grateful, I apologized. You are welcome. She says she didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable, but there was a lot of questions about him, like being open with Shekinah in public. and she wants to feel that he's going to show her how much he loves and cares about her, and it's important for them to have mutual respect. He says that he understands her point. He gets so defensive when people want him to do something. But right now he wants to post, and he's going to do it tonight as a sign of his good intention and to show her how valuable she is to him. So she's worth a post. And she's crying over the moon happy for this. Sarper feels this is a good night. He's going to keep it going. He's posting tonight. She asks her sister how she feels, and she says that tonight was better than last night, but there are things that worry her about him still. She can't forget what happened. She thinks he's immature and needs to grow. And he says he knows that she loves him and he'll protect her. He tells her that he knows that he loves Shekinah and he will protect her to the death. He'll take the sister's advice about their relationship serious. And then he's like, take the photo for our first post so it's meaningful. Like, he's so full of crap. They're all so full of crap. She kind of wants to pretend like she's this happy, perfect relationship because she likes appearance and she wants to save face. And she knows this is bad and he's toxic and controlling. But she likes it. She likes that he weighs her every day. She likes he controls her hair. She probably likes when he calls her those names in the bedroom. And that's why he was so comfortable throwing them out there. But, you know, whatever. How would I know? Anyway, that was all for these 2 episodes. I should be getting the new 90-day out. Not later in this week, but, you know, by the weekend end. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll be back on track, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a good week and a good weekend. And don't forget to take deep breaths and do something nice for yourself because we deserve it. Have a good night, guys. Bye.